We're going to be starting in a little bit. Hi, everybody. We will be starting shortly. Just waiting on Mary. Hi, Judith. Hi, Brandon. Hi, Jesse.
Hello.
Christina, hi. Mary, you're on mute. Amelia, hi.
Hey.
Everyone, this is so exciting. I'm gonna give everybody a few minutes to hop in.
Is anybody else still getting acclimated to all things Zoom? Because I know I am.
I think they change it slightly every 5 or 10 minutes just to throw everybody off.
Say it again.
He says that they change every 5 to 10 minutes just to throw everybody off.
Hi, Cecilia.
Cecilia's here?
Yes.
Hi, Cece.
Can everybody hear me okay? I feel like my sound is not the best. Yeah? Okay. Okay. All right, I guess we can go ahead and get started. First of all, thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's event, Organizing in the South. I know at this point, everybody may or may not be fed up with all things virtual, so I definitely appreciate the support. My name is Jeneisha Harris. I am the Tennessee Fellow for Ignite National. I'm so excited to be doing this event with none other than my sister, Mary Black. I'll let her, briefly introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Black. I'm the Raleigh Nashville Fellow. I'm also one of the current organizers for Climate Action North Carolina. So I'm here wearing a couple different hats, but I'm so glad you guys could come. I think this is going to be a really great event. And when Jeneisha approached me about doing this a couple weeks ago, I was so excited to do it with her. So I'm glad we can make our dream a reality for everyone.
Yay.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to go ahead and start presenting. Organizing in the South. I'm gonna hide you guys.
Hi, Cecilia.
Okay, so what's on the agenda today? We're going to be doing icebreakers, and then we're going to be meeting the speakers, which is Jeneisha and I. We're going to be talking about what organizing is, specifically what community organizing is. what's the importance of organizing in the South, as well as strategies to organizing in the South. And then we're going to be sharing our own personal stories as organizers and opening up the door for anybody else that has any questions for us or has any things that they want to share during that time. And then lastly, we're going to give you some action items and we're asking you to connect with us in different ways. Does that sound good? I hope so.
Yay, sounds good. So first, let's start off with the icebreaker. So in the chat or out loud, your choice, please state your name, your pronouns, where you are, and what are your experiences with organizing. And if you don't have any, what brought you here today? I know that is a lot, but Mary did share her screen, so you'll be able to see it as you type in the chat box. So name, pronouns, where you're from, what are your experiences with organizing, and if you don't have any, what brought you here today?
I guess I can go ahead and jump in. I'm Connor. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm originally from Western Michigan, but now reside in Durham. And my experiences with organizing is that I'm an organizer right now. I'm actually one of Mary's co-workers, and I did a little bit of it in college too, I guess I would say.
Cool.
Awesome, Connor.
Thank you, Connor.
Jessie is also here. Hers from Oxford, North Carolina, and she organizes for environmental issues since 2006. Wow, that's awesome. And she's here because of me. Thank you for coming, Jessie. Brandon is also here. He's from all over, and he previously worked with Greenpeace and Fieldworks, and he's here to support me. Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna keep that as an action item. We're gonna probably start moving on a little bit. John Luke is here too, and he's with Climate Action North Carolina as well in Raleigh, and he's here with me. Thank you guys so much for coming. This just like warms my little heart.
Yay, John. He has Mississippi. I couldn't see the rest.
NC organizing since 2016. We have Cecilia here from Central Valley. She's a Central Valley Fellow for Ignite National. She's here to support both Jeneisha and I. That's awesome. Thank you, Cece. Amelia's also here. She's from Chapel Hill, North Carolina. She has some community organizing experience and a little bit of organizing for labor issues and she's also a field organizer with Climate Action North Carolina. So it seems like we have some people who already know a little bit about organizing. So this should be a pretty good conversation as we go through it. I'm excited.
Yay.
So next up, meet the speakers. We already met us, but you guys dropping in. If you're just now showing up, drop your name, pronouns,
where you're from,
where you're from, your experience with organizing, or if you don't have any, what brought you here today in the chat box while we're talking about ourselves. Would you like to go first, Jeneisha?
Sure. Well, like I said before, I'm Jeneisha Harris. I'm a fifth-year student at Tennessee State University. I first got my organizing experience, honestly, within political campaigns. I interned for the Hillary Clinton campaign back in 2016. From there, I became an HBCU ambassador for the White House. From there, I interned for Congressman Cohen, but I got into the activism side here in Tennessee with organizing protests and marches to advocate for the removal of the Nathan Bedford Forrest statue. It sits in the Tennessee Capitol. If you don't know who Nathan Bedford Forrest was, he was the first Grand Wizard of the KKK. So removing those symbols of racism and things of that nature. I also have a 501c3 nonprofit that I co-founded with my partner, Delvin Moody. We basically advocate for the progression of Black and Brown millennials all across the state and nationally as well. We started organizing free breakfast programs around the country in Memphis, in Nashville, in Harlem, in Atlanta. And basically, we just wanted to give back to children who do not have lunches or breakfast during the summertime, because the federal program within the schools, they only provide lunches and breakfast when school is in. So the summers, kids go hungry. So we definitely want us to give back in that way. Also with the Equity Alliance, they are a 501c3 organization in Tennessee as well, and they focus on all things voter registration. And most recently, Ignite Nashville, I'm the fellow for all of Tennessee. My work expands to Nashville, to Memphis, and basically I engage young women in the political process on the collegiate level. So that's a little bit about my organizing experience. So yeah.
Awesome. She's so great. So I'm Mary. I'm from North Carolina. I probably have had my first adventure into organizing as a senior in college. I went to North Carolina A&T, and I was an advocacy corps fellow my senior year, and I worked on climate emergency preparedness topics and like organizing the community in Greensboro, as well as people on my college campus and surrounding college campuses for lobbying your legislators, submitting letters to decision makers, planning events, coordinating certain things. After that, I graduated and worked a little bit as in the political realm. I did campaign management here and there, and I worked as a consultant for different things, working on various people's campaigns. I have had some experience with environmental work, doing organizing. This is my first official role. I'm currently the Climate Action North Carolina field organizer, one of the field organizers for the Raleigh office. And I've been doing that since February, and it's been really great. So with Climate Action North Carolina, we are building coalitions across the triangle to address environmental justice and climate change topics. So we hold events, we partner, and we build coalitions. But for the last year, I've been the Raleigh Ignite Fellow, and that's really, like Jeneisha said, for most of the state of North Carolina. And through that, I build political empowerment with young women, help them build their ambition to run for office, plan events. I work with elected women and women in political power to bring them straight to people who have an interest in those topics. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah. So let's talk organizing. I know as people in political spaces, organizing spaces, we use that word so much, organizing. But what does that mean specifically? So I'll give a basic definition. Organizing is to arrange and plan an event or activity to arrange or order things so that they can be found or easily and quickly, to put things into a particular arrangement or order. But let's talk about community organizing. What is community organizing? The act of engaging in efforts to promote a community's interests, the process of building consensus around community issues.
Yeah, and I put this picture here because I think it so much represents what organizing is. Like a group of people, like the School of Fish have a problem. They have this giant fish that's coming after them, and together or separate, they are not as strong. But when they get together and organize, it's like you can be a lot more powerful together. And I think that so much underpins what organizing is, specifically what community organizing is. It's really the acts of getting people together for a common goal and a common mission, because you recognize that through community and through collective thoughts and collective works that you are stronger. So I love this picture.
Yeah, I love that too.
Okay. Did you want to take this one? Or?
I will. Community organizing takes many forms. So campus organizing, a lot of what we do with Ignite is going to campuses all over the city, and for me and Mary, all over the state, engaging young women who are, so we don't discriminate. So we obviously have a lot of young women who are interested, who are not in college, but most of the work is on college campuses. So we do go to campuses, we organize there, we get them involved in the form of tabling events, recruitment strategies, and things of that nature. So definitely campus organizing, civil rights organizing. Obviously, most of us, if not all of us, are familiar with, the civil rights movement back in the 60s, Dr. King, Malcolm X, and other great people who did the work that we now benefit from. And then political organizing. So a lot of what Mary does is, work around climate change, environmental justice. So, yeah.
Yeah, just to piggyback off that, I love saying stuff like that. To piggyback off of that, I think campus, like all of organizing takes many forms, but they really kind of all are interrelated in many ways. When you think about the civil rights movement, like in the 1960s, a lot of that probably wouldn't have been as progressive and as impactful without college students and the organizing that went on college campuses. I know here in North Carolina, we have the famous Greensboro Four that sat down at the Woolworth's bench and like started the sit-in movement in the South. Those are for college students, college freshmen, actually.
And also SNCC, actually one of my mentors was a member of SNCC with John Lewis and Diane Nash here in Nashville at Fisk University, which is literally like 5 minutes from here. So yeah, SNCC, they expanded from North Carolina. It actually started in North Carolina, and then it expanded to Nashville and then Memphis and just all across the nation. So young people are truly the foundation of all social movements. If you study history, if you look at history, all young people are, that foundation. So yeah, I agree.
If you notice anything about the pictures, all of the people that are in the pictures
are young. so young.
Yeah, and political organizing probably has to do more with like directly working with your legislators to try to have like the structural like in place laws that are creating bias or inequalities changed. And that's like a different type of organizing, but it still interrelates with like other types of organizing.
Right.
And these are just the top 3 forms, I think, of organizing. There's so many other ways that people are organizing around issues, especially right now during the COVID crisis.
Yes. You can take that next one, Mary.
Movements that have used organizing. So like we were saying, it's pretty much all social movements that have used, pretty much every social movement has used community organizing to shift movements. In recent years, we've seen that. I have some pictures here from the original like equal rights suffrage movement. Actually might not be the suffrage movement. That might be from the civil rights movement. The first picture in black and white. The second picture underneath that is March for Your Lives. A few years ago, the picture underneath that is March for Wall Street. The Wall Street movement. Additionally, we have the Women's March on directly underneath the text. And then last year, like organizing has become such like a tool for creating social change. They had the Sudan uprisings last year in Sudan, where they were a large percentage of the citizens in Sudan were coming together to rally against the violence that they were seeing from their government. And it created like national attention in the course of like 48 hours because of everything that was going on there and all the people that were organizing to create change. So yeah, you don't really, I don't think you create social change without organizing. And that's because organizing at its core is creating conversations in communities that are like being affected by things, and how you can make these changes happen through these conversations and through the actions you guys can take together. And if you get enough people together, that's really how things begin to change. I think they say it's like if you get 3% of the country's population towards an agenda, then you're going to see the change for that. And that has been true, I think, of most movements or all movements that we've seen in modern times.
Right. So the next slide, we have a great quote by Dr. King. Our most powerful nonviolent weapon is also our most demanding. That is organization. To produce change, people must be organized to work together in units of power. I love that. Before we proceed, does anyone have any questions thus far?
I am not seeing anything in the chat. So I'm going to keep going. So what is the importance of organizing in the South? Like when we say that, like what do we mean in the South, and why are we talking about organizing in the South? Why is it important? I thought we were all one big unified, happy, loving country. Well, let's talk about it. We have a short video that kind of speaks to some of the issues of like organizing in the South. And it's with this company called Golden Peanut. A lot of Southern states have organizing things around labor because most of the states here are non-union states, which makes it difficult for some groups of people to be respected. So this is the story of one group in Alabama. And they talk a little bit more about organizing in the South.
For less. And the culture in the South is that the South can't be union.
In the right to work states, it's always tough to organize because the company always tries to hold that against you and scaring them and keep them from talking to you by fear and intimidation.
The company, they just totally disrespected, had no regard for the workers there. And we had to help those people. We had to do things to help those people.
At one point, they said a union would never come here, and we was threatened. I believe in encouraging people that you want to try something different, you want to see something different, you know, and I believe it was tough.
The company just didn't get it, even through the campaign. But the workers stood together, they bonded together, and when we won, it was so emotional for people. They felt like they finally gained a voice.
It really started a fire with me. I mean, I was determined at that point to do whatever I had to do to help these people. They saw that we had won. I mean, we got out, and you talking about people in that plant that was crying, people that was, you know, shouting, praising God for the victory. We all stood in that circle and we sung, and it was just an awesome feeling.
Well, the people are happier now. They've got a seniority system. They got a grievance system. They can fight. We've won several grievances and nearly went to arbitration several times here. And so the people are happy to have somebody to stand up for them.
We got a right to have a voice, to speak, and we got a contract first and foremost. And I believe that a foundation got to start from the ground up. It's going to be a fight, but if we all stand together and unionize together, we're stronger together. Organize, educate, resist, persist.
Cool beans. So that's the story of one group organizing around labor rights in Alabama and their story. But a lot of what they were saying is very indicative of a lot of the issues with organizing in the South. Okay, yeah. Did you want to take the slide?
Yeah. Importance of organizing in the South. Those concerned about social justice cannot ignore the South, a region of historic significance whose importance is only growing. The South is so important within organizing because many of the nation's issues are prevalent because of the political atrocities that derived in southern regions. I think that it's pretty self-explanatory. A lot of the political atrocities that have occurred have been within the South. The South was one of the last regions to allocate the rights that we now benefit from. And it's such a region full of history. And I honestly think, debatably, that the South is the most important and essential region in this movement that we are fighting. Not saying that the West Coast or up north or the Midwest is not equally essential, but the South is truly a special place. The Deep South, emphasis, the Deep South.
I would have to agree with you, and it's like I might be a little biased. Go ahead.
Especially regions like Alabama, Tennessee, Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
Whew, super, super hard work. Especially, I represent Tennessee, a super conservative red state. That's super traditional, and it's really, really hard to organize here sometimes. Rikia, I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, had a list of Deep South states if you want to take a look at the chat box, but I definitely agree. Yeah. Arika.
Yeah.
Beautiful, Arika. I love it. I'm so sorry.
We have this quote at the top, the South has something to say. If you guys are into hip hop culture, you might not get the reference. It's referring to a quote by Andre 3000 from
Andre 3000.
Yes, this is a quote from Andre 3000 at an award show back in the 90s. This was before Southern rap and Southern music had really like hit it to the main stage, and there was a lot of discrimination. Like it was mostly just New York or California rappers, and there weren't any Southern rappers. And you know, that's changed a lot at the time. So he received the award and got booed on the stage. And his parting words for the crowd was, "The South has something to say." And like ever since then, the South has been like number one for
talking.
Yes, and hip hop industry. But it so represents like what Southern organizing and the importance of Southern organizing. Like the people of the South who are closest to the pain have something to say. And I think many of them have been marginalized for so long that like the reason why it's so important, like Jeneisha's saying, it's so vital in these deep South regions is because we're trying to create like equitable change across the country. And like, you can't just focus on regions that are already progressive. You have to do the work in the communities that are most affected by like inequities. The importance of more importance to organizing in the South, there's elements to consider. The history, as we know, the South has a long history of white supremacy and racial inequity that date back to the Reconstruction era, all the way up to 2020. If you really wanted to study about it, we could talk about it for a long time. I know Jeneisha and I have, but this is just not the time for that. But a lot of the things that were like racial inequities that are based in white supremacy after the Reconstruction, the tenets of those things are still present in a lot of systems today. And so it becomes a very like an issue with like undoing systems of oppressions that have been around for hundreds of years. So that's really where organizing in the South, an important element of that. But additionally, the demographics in 2017, and I'm pretty sure these numbers probably haven't changed that much in 3 years, 58% of people who identified as African American lived in the South. The 10 states with the largest populations are Texas, Georgia, Florida, New York, North Carolina, California, Illinois, Maryland, Virginia, and Louisiana. So some of those states that Arika had mentioned, like the Deep South, that's where most African American people are living. Over half of the population of the U.S. population live in the South. Half of the African American U.S. population live in the South. So when we're talking about like organizing around racial inequity and like where it's important for these changes to be made, it's important to be made where the people are living and they live in the South. So that's an aspect. But also labor and economy. We saw it a little bit in the video, but the U.S. Southern economy was built on the exploitation and occupational segregation of people of color, and the legacies of slavery, Jim Crow, and the New Deal has resulted in stark and persistent racial disparities in jobs, wages, benefits, and almost every other measure of economic well-being. So a lot of the issues that are in the South are pervasive and very persistent. And they're very persistent to like large groups of people who have been here for a long time. So that kind of speaks to like why organizing in the South is so important, is so vital, is a conversation that is worth having. I'm gonna open up the door for any questions. Anybody have any questions, comments? Okay, awesome. So we can go back and forth with this one, Jeneisha.
Okay.
Strategies.
So,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna just say the title.
Okay. So strategies to organizing in the South. Let's talk strategy. The Racial Equity Tools is a great resource for organizers or just people in general who are interested in learning more about organizing. We actually have a list of resources that we're going to share to you guys before we depart this Zoom call. But the Racial Equity Tools has an example of strategies to organizing in the South. So the example that they use is the 2008 presidential campaign. So 4 aspects: mobilizing the new majority, building at the base, the power of the pocketbook, aka funding, and then defending voting rights and promoting electoral reform. So 4 aspects. So let's talk about mobilizing the new majority. The Racial Equity Tool says that Obama's campaign was successful in key Southern states because of its unique ability to mobilize the core elements of the new majority in the South. A growing coalition of African Americans, Latino, urban, and young white voters. Other groupings like single women and Asian American voters are also a part of changing electoral of changing the electorate. That is realigning Southern politics.
That has been so true. I think that was the one, like the first year Obama was elected was the 1 year in like 50 years that North Carolina had ever gone blue, and making us a swing state, and we haven't gone blue since then, so I don't know how we're a swing state, but it was very interesting to like see the occurrence of that happening and like the impact of like new people being engaged, the new people that are being engaged in political topics and like topics that are progressing communities, and it is the various groups of color as well as young people. I think it's probably young people more than anybody that are really, like becoming the new source of like the new America.
Yeah. And to your point, I think it's super essential in campaigns or within any organizing strategy to mobilize forgotten people. So single young women, as they said, young white voters, Asian American voters, especially the Black community, Latino, urban, and young people in general. I definitely feel like it's so essential to come to the front doorsteps of the people who feel like, why should I vote? Why is this important? Why, are you running this campaign? Instead of targeting the people that we always target, middle white class people or middle Black class people who are already going to vote, people who already know who they're going to vote for. So definitely mobilizing people who feel like that they're forgotten in this struggle. So the next one is building at the base. So at a time when political parties have moved from neighborhood-based institutions to high-tech operations focused on TV ads and direct mail, the Obama campaign revived a bottom-up style of grassroots mobilization. In North Carolina, Obama had 50 field offices and some 21,000 volunteers and staff fanned out across the state. But these efforts also revealed a crucial weakness. Despite the efforts of activists in places like Durham, North Carolina, and Atlanta to sustain the campaign's energy, the organizing infrastructure created by Obama has largely collapsed in the aftermath of the elections. So, want to talk about that, Mary?
Really speaks to some of the issues that are around political organizing. They only happen as people are running for office or as elections are happening, and then afterwards, it kind of falls off. But I know I'm a grassroots organizer, a field organizer, so I do work in the community. There's nothing more important in your toolbox than being able to go into the communities and have conversations with those people about what's going on, how it's affecting them, and how they would like to see change and what they would like to see happen for their community and for their future and for their life. So building at the base from the bottom up, with those conversations and leveraging those pathways to a better future is so important for organizing, especially in the South.
I definitely echo all of that, Mary. So let's talk funding, the power of the pocketbook. So the economy was the big issue in 2008 and showed how economic populism can resonate with a diverse range of Southern voters. In a state like North Carolina, with everything from banks to manufacturing and prices and the unemployment rate edging above 8%, the ability of Obama to speak to mainstream pocketbook issues was crucial to victory. It also helped win over a share of working class and poor whites. While only 35% of North Carolina white voters overall picked Obama, the number jumped from 42% for white making under $50,000 a year. Do you want to talk about that a little, Mary?
I think you hit on it pretty well. I think, we saw that with movements that came out of during the Obama administration, like the Wall Street movement, just the importance of equity through economics and how those things influence people's ability and rationale for why they do the things they do. So super important.
Yeah.
Critical. It says
the last and fourth one is defending voting rights and promoting electoral. I can't see the last one. What does it say?
Electoral reform.
Reform. Okay. we're still talking about the Obama campaign. That's the example that they use. Voting reforms played an important and underreported role in helping progressive candidates in 2008. Millions of voters used no-excuse early voting in 8 southern states, and activists successfully used early voting to ensure voters got to the polls. In Florida and Virginia, bipartisan reforms of felon disenfranchisement laws restored the voting rights of tens of thousands of voters, especially African Americans. North Carolina's new law allowing same-day registration and voting during the early voting period was used by 92,000 voters, especially African Americans and young voters.
I don't think that's an important issue for voting then.
Say it again.
I know here in North Carolina, we have really, really bad issues with gerrymandering and
yes, and then voter suppression
in general. It's kind of a sick sort of cycle we live in as organizers and people of color, because I've literally met people who are like 50, 60 years old and they're like, oh, I don't vote. And it's like, why? It's like, oh, I just don't see the importance of it. So we're living in this like sustained state of like many people feeling like their vote doesn't matter, but at the same time, like taking away the power that they have for their community to make change, because voting does matter. And like a lot of the things that you are voting on, they don't want you to vote. That's why they make it so hard for you to vote. And some of those things that Obama has been talking, or that is going on during the Obama administration, that is in this paragraph have actually, some of those things have changed. I know in North Carolina, we have to all get new IDs this year, and it's like a part of the voting process or whatever. I don't even know. They managed to keep it off the last election. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that for the next election, but it potentially could keep thousands of people from voting. And that, I mean, it's like it underpins the history of voter disenfranchisement that is present throughout the South, especially with African Americans and people of color.
Right. I definitely echo all of that, Mary.
Okay, next slide. So now we're going to talk about our organizer story a little bit more. And we have some questions to guide our conversation. You guys can drop into the chat box any questions that you may have that you or comments that you would like to make for us while we're talking. We'll definitely make sure we get to that as well.
So the first question is, what does organizing mean to you? I guess I'll expand on that a little bit briefly. Organizing to me is basically the definition of it, organizing people to a common goal. That goal may be political, that goal may be within organizing, it could be within a collegiate space. Organizing for me in Tennessee, Mary knows this, I talk about this all the time, and I know you're probably tired of it, but organizing in a red state is really, really difficult, especially being a triple minority, being a young Black woman. Sometimes I go into spaces where I'm literally the only colored person, the only young person. So sometimes people tell me, okay, were you too young to have expertise? Or, you're just getting into this field as a person of color, so you don't have that level of expertise either. And then you're a student, so like, what do you know? So it's been really, really hard to organize within spaces like that. But Ignite is such a great organization, and it's really made life as an organizer much better because of the resources that we have, because of the community between sisters that we've cultivated. So many of my sisters are on here now. Mary is one. So it's just been such a journey. I wouldn't trade it for anything, but it has been really, really hard. I've been arrested twice in the past year for my organizing experiences, organizing mass amount of students, hundreds of students to the state capitol, advocating for, voting rights, period justice, reproductive rights, and more recently advocating for the removal of the statue that I talked about earlier of Nathan Bedford Forrest. So it's not easy at all. I can remember staying up till like 4 a.m. for a mass protest that I was organizing and having class at 9:35. And it can really weigh on you if you let it. But I think organizing to me means organizing people to a common goal. So, yeah.
I felt that. I wish you could have seen my face. I was like snapping and like shaking my head like, yes, I feel this on so many levels. But I'm sorry, and to piggyback off of that, something that we were really proud to accomplish. The journey is not complete at all because the statue still sits in the Tennessee State Capitol, but we got the governor to respond to us on this issue, and he does not respond to any organizations, any group of people that have been advocating for this issue for so many years. He actually had a press conference. He wrote an article, an op-ed for the Tennessean on why he's actually considering removing the statue and replacing it with somebody like Ida B. Wells or another, great Tennessean who actually did work, because Nathan Bedford-Forrest didn't do any great work. So that's something that we were really proud to accomplish. Knowing your story with
small victories
that happens behind all of the work for like making that happen, I'm so happy for you and so proud, because I remember you telling me this story a year ago at our organizer training. And right. But to answer the question, what does organizing mean to me? I think, and basically it means everything. I don't know who I would be without it. And I think it's because I'm such an affected and like I feel things in the world, and I'm so passionate about things. Like I need a way to channel that outrage, that passion, that want to make a change into something productive. That's what organizing is. I know with everything that's been going on in the news about like the shooting deaths, I've been like organizing around those topics in different forms. So I mean, to me, it's like, it's just, sometimes it's a way to alleviate, like it's a way for you to feel like you're doing something. Like I have to feel like I'm a part of the change, or I'm not doing enough. So like having those conversations, building those safe spaces, like through Ignite. I think that's probably one of the safest spaces for organizing I've ever been in my whole early career as an organizer.
Yeah.
They like Jeneisha said, so many of our sisters are here. When she came to me to do this, I was like, this is perfect for you and me. It just means so much, because I really don't know who I would be without organizing, without political work, without being able to like make changes in the world that I would like to see. And that's exactly what it is. Like if you can think it, you can do it. That's what it means to me.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Okay, what personal forms of organizing do you implement within your work? I would say Malcolm X has a quote that I won't say verbatim because I don't want to screw it up, but he talks about how one of the biggest mistakes of organizers is seeking to organize a sleeping people. If you look at my Instagram, if you follow me on social media, you'll see that I do a lot of mini virtual history lessons. I'm always doing quote unquote hot takes. I truly believe that you have to awaken people first with the information, with the resources, before you organize people. Organizing a dead people or sleep people is pretty much I'm sorry guys, I had a call. Organizing a sleep people is, to me, a waste of time, because people don't know the issues, or people don't know the history, or people don't know why they're doing this work. Why should I advocate for this? Why should I organize hundreds of people and lose sleep on this issue? So I definitely think awakening people with information and following up with that information with sorry guys, it's not enough to just give people I don't know who this is. Sorry. You have to follow up with those.
What is going on? Are
you
back?
Yeah, I don't know who this is calling. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay. So some of the personal forms of organizing that I implement within my work. Well, I work as a field organizer. So like Jeneisha said, I think the biggest part of my work is undoing apathy. I was reading this study a couple years ago. Specifically, my interest has always been in climate and environmental work through a racial and like social justice lens. And a lot of people like don't get that. I remember being in college and people were like, I went to an HBCU, which is a historically Black college or university, and people were literally like, Black people don't care about the environment. I've heard that recently, that Black people don't care about the environment, so why should I care about the environment? Or that, you know, they just don't see it as an issue affecting communities of color. And I have to tell them in so many words without getting frustrated that that's just completely untrue, and that I think that it's built that way for us to believe these things, for inactions to continue. I think the biggest part of organizing that I'm doing right now is like bringing the facts and figures to people who haven't really considered them very much. Environmental justice is a topic that hasn't really been very well communicated in modern history of environmentalism up until probably like the 1970s, 1980s. Most environmentalism focused on the ozone or the polar bears or, you know, the rainforest, things that, and like the issues that were affecting people of color, like air quality, toxic pollutants in their communities, toxic soil, like water pollution. Those like pervasive environmental racist issues weren't what was coming out of modern environmental movements. And that's where I think the disdain between like, these issues aren't Black issues. And I hear that from people of color. I hear that from people who aren't people of color. And it's wholly untrue. I think that is the biggest part of what my organizing is right now as a field organizer with Climate Action North Carolina. Just eradicating some of those ideologies about what justice is and like how climate action should look. I do that through presentations. I've been having some really awesome presentations the last couple of months. I'm going to tell you guys about some at the end. I hope you can make them. But yeah, I think right now I'm using like mostly because we're living in a post-COVID quarantine world, I'm putting on webinars like this to like create safe spaces for people to be able to have conversations and learn more and figure out how they can take part. Because I think a lot of the apathy isn't related to people not caring. I think a lot of it is related to people not knowing what to do.
Right.
So I've been on this ward in apathy because I swear I'm one of the most concerned people you'll meet. Like, I'm concerned about everything all the time. It's a headache. I think that is kind of what organizing is. It's like you're the spearhead. So you're just constantly like going in on the issues. Like you're poking and poking and poking and poking and working to like cut through to make the changes that you want to see. And it comes in so many different forms. But I think one way is like cutting through that layer of fat and apathy that people have around certain things. And that's through education and like, you know, like Jeneisha was saying, like bringing them the facts and figures to like explain the pervasive nature of a lot of the issues that we work on.
Yeah, I love that, Mary. The last guiding question that we have is, what makes organizing in the South different from organizing in other regions in the United States? I think, you know, like I said earlier, organizing in the South, especially within a red state, is much more different because the South has a lot of red states in general. But I think it's different, and it's not different, it's difficult because a lot of what we are facing in the South is not happening in other regions of the world. It's not happening on the West Coast or the Midwest or up north. It's happening, you know, particularly in the South. And I think for me, as an organizer, like how you were saying before, North Carolina became a swing state, and I was just like, I just pray for the day that Tennessee ever, you know, gets close to even being a swing state. So I think the difference is our issues are different because of the region that we're in. The history is much more different from the West Coast or up north. When you look at history, a lot of slaves rather would have preferred to go up north as opposed to being in the South, because life up north was just so much different. And I truly feel like it's still the same way now. And the South was, one of the last regions to get the rights that we, benefit from now. So I definitely think that's how, the South is a much more peculiar place.
I would definitely agree with you. I think to add to that, I think it's the Southern values that make organizing so different in other regions. You, as an organizer, you constantly have to be reflective of the community, and like curating what you're saying for the audience that you're talking to. And it gets very different here because everybody seems to have like different values. We have Southern values, and some of those Southern values don't always like coincide with progressive values. So when you start talking about like certain topics, it gets kind of questionable when you're having those conversations on how you're making change. It's hard sometimes. I feel like the politicization, I think I said that right, of a lot of the issues that we've been seeing, from gun reform to sexual assault laws to climate change, have become so politicized in recent years. And I think that falls along party lines usually, and usually those party lines are more reflected, like the party lines that are like less progressive are reflected in Southern states. And so there's sometimes when you're organizing in community and you're working in a community that may not be receptive to what you're trying to do, or that your goals may be kind of futile, but you still have to do it. So I think that is a big difference. Like you might not be successful with your efforts here, even if you do everything exactly right, and even if you are on the right side of history. Sometimes it just doesn't work out because the Southern values and the negativity of those things are sometimes more like fuller than your efforts. And that's probably what makes it so important. I really think the South is the most important region, and I agree with Jeneisha, and that's no shade to anywhere else. But that's a little bit of our story. Do you have anything else to add, Jeneisha? And does anybody have anything, questions or comments? I see some people have added some great comments. Thank you, John.
I don't have anything else to add. I just want to open up the floor for questions if anybody has any questions.
Oh, I got a question. So Doug Jones, that election, so from what I understand, it was money poured into grassroots organizations that were already on the ground that kind of helped him win. Is that kind of correct? And is that the investment that you think needs to be made in the South around, I guess, a bunch of issues, but like, I guess, investing in, I guess we know there are people working there, but I guess people that are already on the ground, I guess, with that investment in them, I guess, get us to where we need to go, get voting wise. And so what do you guys think about that?
Do you want to take that question, Jeneisha?
Can you repeat that question? I'm so sorry.
I was just saying with Doug Jones in the election, I think I read that it was money poured into the grassroots organizations that were already on the ground there. And is that an example of what we think that should be done in a bunch of the Southern states, like money poured into grassroots organizations that are already doing the work to just kind of help us get to where we need electoral wise? Because I'm from Mississippi, so I understand like moving here and moving to like a swing state was a big thing, because in Mississippi I felt like defeated. Like I'm eventually, that's my home. I love it. I'm gonna do everything I can there, but I do just know just like the lack of resources that are there. And what do you guys think? Is that something that, would be a good thing to pour into those grassroots?
Right. I want to read some really great feedback that Erika put in the group chat. She said, people don't see us as battlegrounds, but the thing is, America can't get free until the South does. Oh, I love it, girl. I'm going to tweet that and tag you.
Right.
And the truth is, the more money you pour into the electorate, the more the electorate is prone to show up. Oh, girl, you are preaching. I absolutely, especially the first statement that you made, I got you, I'm gonna follow you. I absolutely believe that, because the South, if we're being honest, given history, the South is where most of our issues that we are currently fighting for derived. So America won't be free until the South is free first. So I love it. I love it.
I have chills.
No, literally, I'm gonna tweet that.
It's deep. Tag me in it when you do.
I will.
Well, if I'm gonna move on, if nobody has any more comments, I think.
Anybody have any more questions? Do you feel heard or respected by your community as a Black woman? Oh, Cecilia, I can talk about this all day. I would say yes and no. Ignite, guys, if you have not heard or if you are not familiar with the work of Ignite National, please go to ignitenational.org and learn about our work and what we do. It has been such a safe space to be a fellow and organizer for Ignite. We have self-care workshops. You know, we have so many things that are needed as activists, as organizers. When I first started this work, if you would follow me 2 years ago and if you would follow me now, you would see such a difference, because I would argue with people all the time on social media because I just didn't feel heard. I didn't feel like my point was being understood. And I just agree with the sentiment so much of our brother Malcolm X that Black women are the most unprotected, disrespected people on the planet. And I just didn't feel heard. I was protesting, I was getting arrested, I was, doing all of these great things on a state and now an international level, and I just felt like nobody was listening. Why isn't anybody listening? Until I started to get death threats from, the people who were countering my work. So when you mess with white conservatives, symbolisms of their version of freedom, aka statues of Nathan Bedford Forrest and KKK wizards, you just open up a whole can of worms. And I don't think that I was fully prepared for the backlash. And I had to, at one point, get protection from, people for my safety. I was walking around campus literally with kind of like bodyguards, because people were literally like trying to take my life for speaking out. But I just didn't feel heard from my people, but the people who did hear me were trying to hurt me, if that makes sense. So I really got discouraged until about 9-10 months ago when I first became a fellow for Ignite. And now people are starting, I feel like people have always listened to my voice and my expertise as an organizer, but I feel like it's been empowered by Ignite, which is why Ignite is so important to me. So I would say yes and no to that point. A man could say the exact same thing that I could say, or tweet the exact same thing that I could tweet, and people would be like, oh my gosh, bro, like, yeah. And then when I say it, it's like, oh, you're an angry Black woman. You're fighting for these rights and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, so exhausting. But I would say yes and no. And I think as an organizer, you have to be prepared for both.
Yes. I could not agree with anything that I couldn't agree more with what Jeneisha is saying. And just knowing her stories about a lot of the things she did face when people were starting to listen to her, and, the things that were happening to her, like when she started to, her star began to rise as an activist. It was really crazy. So I would say yes and no in a lot of different ways. I think for me, it was a little bit different because all I've ever wanted to do was environmental work, climate change work, and environmental justice work. And I've known that since I was a kid, literally. But actually making that happen for myself was incredibly hard. I spent 4 years looking for a job. 4 years trying to feel like I was being respected, like I was being heard. And I interviewed at so many different organizations in North Carolina and across the nation. And just to be told time and time again that, you're good, you're amazing, you're great, but it's just not good enough. And I really felt like I was maybe in the wrong field. Like I was having an existential crisis for 4 years about why can't I not be respected in my field? Why don't people want to hire me? What's wrong with me? I feel like I'm just as knowledgeable. I have just as many accolades. I have this, that, and the third as so many people who are doing the work that I want to do. And nobody sees me. Nobody respects me. Nobody cares to take a chance on me. And I was really discouraged for so long. I think the first time I ever felt like validated in the career path that I chose was when I became an Ignite Fellow, like so many months ago. And it really set the course for a lot of the things that happened following. I met Climate Action North Carolina this year, and they saw me immediately and they were like, yes, we want you to do this work. We think you're capable. We think you can do it. We want you. And it was just so, that moment really changed my life, because I was certain, like I said, I was certain that it just was me. Like I was just doing something wrong. But when I really looked at the facts around it, and this is actually something that I think I might build a bigger study on, there's not a lot of people of color in environmental movements. In fact, it's probably the least diverse field, not even probably, it is the least diverse field in the country. And that's something that's indicative of other places in other countries too. I was reading an article about a prominent environmental rebellion organization, and they emailed me to see if I wanted to volunteer with them, and I Googled them because I hadn't heard of them at all. This was several months ago. And the first question when I Googled them, the first article that came up was, does Extinction Rebellion, oh, I said their name, oops, have a race problem? And I was like, like, what does that mean? And in the article, they were talking about how in environmental foundations, environmental nonprofits, and governmental environmental jobs, like they don't have Black people or people of color in those roles. And so then it made me look into, that was it for the UK, so that made me look into the America. It's the same here. So I kind of realized that maybe it was just me that was influencing why I wasn't getting these roles. And like maybe these organizations where in a staff of 20 people that are all working on clean energy or like making sure that we are toxic free, there's no people of color at all on their staff. Like maybe those places weren't right for me, and maybe that was the universe kind of telling me those things. So I think in some ways, as I've stepped more into the role as an organizer in several different capacities, people are hearing me and people are listening to me. But before that, I felt like nobody cared what I had to say, and it didn't matter how many degrees I had, how many fellowship or internship programs I put myself into. It didn't like get over the fact that some things are racially based and racially influenced, and it was really hard for me. So I'd say yes and no. And I think even now in some spaces, I think I'm respected, but it's like as a form of tokenism. Like I was recently in a meeting and somebody was like, oh, you should join the environmental boards meeting here in whatever city. We've been holding this position and we've been waiting for, you know, a person of color to join the position. It's like, oh, like I couldn't just have the position because I would be great to be I would be a young person to be on the board. It's like, oh, because you've been waiting for a person of color, like that's cool. But so I feel like yes, and I feel like no. And in the yes, I feel like sometimes it's very tokenism, like we got the Black girl and she talks about the environment. So yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cecilia. She says, we're both so strong and resilient, and I'm proud of you. The South has two gems. Oh, thanks, Cecilia. You're making me like gush.
Thank you, John. I definitely would love to connect with each of you. Literally, I already followed Arika. So if you would, please put your social media tags in the chat box so we can take a few moments to just connect virtually through social media. And if you guys have any more questions, you're free to drop those as well.
Yes.
So we can take a few moments to do that.
I'm going to follow you, Arika.
This has been really, really great. It's been good to hear some feedback, especially from folks like Mississippi. I love it.
I'm missing an S.
Perfect. And one of the missions for this event for me and Mary was also to not only talk about organizing and strategic elements of that, but creating a virtual space of community for organizers. We prepared this discussion for people who are organizers or people who would like to be organizers, but it seems like everybody is already, doing organizing work on this call. So if you guys would like, we can, set up like a WhatsApp group text or group me or something to keep in touch and to just, be a sense of support for one another, from Mississippi to Alabama to Tennessee to North Carolina. I definitely want to continue, continue, what we've kind of built here. Absolutely, Arika. I also want to say, for the ladies on this call, Ignite National, we are actually in the application process right now. We are accepting applications for the fellowship for this upcoming year. So we have, fellowships in several cities across the states. I think it's 20 plus now. So if you would like, we can share that info with you.
I am dropping in the chat some information about Ignite, starting the college chapter resources in general. That's how we're doing engagement on an Ignite level. Additionally, I'm going to drop in a chat the Google Doc form to be a climate action activist. If you have any interest in sharing climate change work in your community, whether it's environmental justice or like talking about intersections between COVID and climate change, because that's a really big issue right now. I'm actually having a webinar about that next week. Or you can also write a letter to your decision maker. I'm going to be emailing everybody who's not climate action with more information about what a letter to decision maker would look like and how you can submit it, and then like letting me know that you've done it, because I would love to know that you guys are working with your legislators to try to make a difference, or you're sending letters to your legislators. And believe me, those are really powerful things. People act like they don't work, but they do. I'm gonna drop that link in.
Can you guys give us a quick thumbs up if you would like us to do like a group me or like a group WhatsApp, just to, create like a safe space for organizers, because it gets hard sometimes. Mary just dropped the link for the college chapters, for Ignite, how to start a college chapter. Arika, thumbs up.
And the next link is a link to the activist pledges for my organization that I work with. If you guys have an interest in becoming an activist, and it's so simple, we're not asking you to do too much, just like let other people know about what we're doing and spreading the information about climate change work and how it needs to be a bigger topic for so many different communities, especially communities of color. Fill out the form. You can learn more information about how to be active with us. I'm seeing a couple of thumbs.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, if that is it, I am just so pleased with this discussion, this space that we've created. I'm just so excited to connect with you guys. It feels good to be in the midst virtually, of course, with people who understand, your experiences as an organizer. Oh, okay, Connor, no problem. So yeah, keep in touch. I'm about to follow all of you guys on social media. I'm definitely going to make either a WhatsApp or a group me, not sure which one, but we will send you guys a follow-up email with the resources that Mary just put in the chat box. So if that is all, I will see you guys later. Thank you guys for joining.
Thank you guys so much for being here.
Yay.
Thanks. Thank you, Jean-Luc. Jeneisha, we should have taken a picture. Thank you, Morgan. Have a wonderful rest of your day.